I want to start by introducing these four spectacular people. We've got, as I said, four different people, four different stories, lots of shades of nuance in their stories. And I know that all of the people that are muted and black screened in the background, about 140 odd have registered for tonight. And historically, we know that the people who come to survivorship are a combination of newly diagnosed, in treatment, people who've survived for many years and are very stable. Some are in complete remission, some are living with ongoing illness. And I think there's a bit of something in the stories you'll hear from the panel. There's a little bit of something for everyone. So as Hinta said, if you do have a comment or a question, put it in the chat and we'll try and get to you at the end of the presentation. And meanwhile, I'm going to call on each of the four panelists to broadly introduce themselves to you all. And then I'm going to run a fairly open kind of style of a panel. This is not one person speaking after the other. This is a conversation among four very experienced people dealing with cancer. I'm going to start with you, Deb. Tell us who you are.
Hi, everybody. My name's Deborah Bridgman. I have a bit of a problem with my throat lately, so I'm going to try and talk as well as I can. So let's see. Suzanne, you always tell me to be brief, but it's hard to be brief after 28 years. I was originally diagnosed 28 years ago with stage 3 breast cancer. I was 30 years old, and I've never left the cancer world, unfortunately, but I've been diagnosed 6 more times since then. And I think the 3rd time I became metastatic. So that's a very brief history of my 28 years.
Excellent. Welcome, Deb. MJ, Marie-Josée.
Good evening. My name is Marie-Josée, or MJ, whichever. I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer 3.5 years ago. I had several treatments of radiation. I had chemo and a surgery also. Sorry, a surgery also. Right now, my condition is stable. I'm still followed very, very closely. And I'm back to work full time. And I've been back to work since just before the pandemic.
Welcome, MJ. Albert.
Sorry about my dog.
Oh, that's okay. What's his name?
It's a girl. Her name is Sasha.
Sasha. Well, I think Sasha is a coping mechanism, so we like copers as part of our panel also. So don't worry about Sasha. Albert.
Good evening, everybody. Bonsoir tout le monde. My name is Albert Siebe. I was not feeling well in 2000 during the pandemic. Went to the hospital. I had a mass infection. It ended up being septic. I had 12 hours to live. If I didn't show up at the hospital, they operated on me within not long after I ended up in the emergency, not knowing what was going on. And long story short, I woke up with a stoma bag and no sign of cancer then, but they did take biopsies. About 2 weeks later, they announced that I had cancer, colorectal cancer, a lot of complications. And I stayed 2 months at the hospital just because of the infection. Up after that with radiation therapy as an option, and then chemotherapy, and a major operation about 4 months later, and recuperating from all of that. Did another bout of chemotherapy, and now I'm stable and just doing a lot of follow-ups.
Good. Welcome to Albert. And Paul.
Good evening, everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. I'd like to use this platform real quick to give 2 shout outs. One to my son, who after my treatments got the word resilience tattooed on the side of his belly. And also a big shout out to my wife, Shelley. I think if it wasn't of her being such a rock in my life, things would be different. Maybe not be here. But to get back to the introduction, in 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. I followed up with 8 rounds of chemo, 30 rounds of radiation, most of them twice a day. I finished my treatments on June 14th, 2016. I've been cancer-free since then. I do live with some pretty drastic side effects. We can go into those later. And again, just thanks to everybody for being here tonight.
Okay, so seeing you've given a shout out, I'll give the same courtesy to our others. Simple shout outs. Deb, who do you want to give a shout out to who's been on your team?
I have a bunch of friends that are on my team. I have my family that's on my team, and I have Hope and Cope on my team.
Excellent. MJ?
I also have my family, which were great. I have several very close friends who were always there for me, and my colleagues, some of which are listening in tonight. They were also extremely, extremely good to me. And Hope and Cope is a great support also.
Excellent. And Albert, who do you want to give a shout out to?
My doctors and my brother and my recently deceased father.
Well, he'd be very proud of you talking about him tonight, and his, may his memory be a blessing. And as we all, everybody seems to talk about, and Paul, I just noticed you gave the date you finished your treatment. Do you all remember the day you started? What was that day when you first heard that diagnosis? Albert, you just explained that you weren't expecting it. You went in with an infection and you weren't expecting cancer. But for the other panelists, and I'll start with you, MJ, what was the day you were diagnosed like? Were you expecting that there was something wrong, or this was a total surprise to you?
It was not a total surprise because I had seen a doctor, a general doctor, who, when he saw what was going on my body, said, "I don't like this at all. You have to go in to get a follow-up." So that was, a good clue. And the stage 4 was a big surprise, but I knew there was cancer. So yeah, I don't remember the date. I remember the date of my first chemo treatment, which was December 24th.
Yeah, dates are important. They're just milestones along the path. Paul, how did you hear about cancer? Were you expecting that diagnosis?
You know what, Susan, not at all. There was no cancer in my family. Cancer was a drastic word that we heard other people had. I was very surprised. I did a couple, we were vacationing in Las Vegas, and I felt something in my throat, like a cold or something. And nobody used the word cancer until Dr. Molnarek from the Jewish mentioned what it was and how we were going to go about it. But the word cancer was never mentioned. There was biopsies and, other talking, but it was quite shocking to hear.
Yeah. And Deb, you were a young woman. You said you were 30, and I know you had a couple of small kids. How did cancer rear its ugly head in your story?
Yeah, well, for myself, I was just going through a divorce, and I had 2 young children, and I was going through a lot of stress. And I found the lump underneath my armpit. And I went to a local doctor in Laval, and he was associated with the Jewish, and he's since passed. He was a great doctor though. And he, at the second he felt the lump underneath my armpit, he said, "I'm sending you to the Jewish. That shouldn't be there." And pretty much it all just happened really quick. Ended up at the Jewish. I had a biopsy, I think, the same day. And even the doctor that did the biopsy was like, that's not a good thing under your arm. And speaking of dates, I have clear dates in my mind of all my diagnoses. And it's 1994, the first one, 98 was the second, 2013 was the third, 2015 was the fourth, 2018 was the fifth, and most recently, 2021, 22 was the sixth.
So I think you're going to be our poster girl on resilience tonight. So we'll come back to you talking about resilience. But many of the common side effects that everybody experiences from cancer, and the literature is full of them. The big one is fatigue. Does anybody want to speak to whether they felt that sort of absolutely bone-wearying fatigue, that sleep does not... Oh, MJ, you've lit up there. So you get the first comment on fatigue.
Yes, it's very, some days just standing up, getting up from the couch was where I spent my days basically, was something I had to think of and get myself to move and do it. That was actually the main problem for me.
Did it catch you by surprise? Did it catch you by surprise?
I didn't expect to be so tired. Also, the lack of appetite. I couldn't eat. I really literally had to force food down my throat. And now the main side effect I do have now is neuropathy. And that's not going away.
Okay. Tell people what neuropathy is, MJ, for those who don't know about neuropathy.
Neuropathy is when my hands tingle all the time. At one point, I couldn't even write. Now it's much better. That came back mostly, but I don't feel my toes or pretty well my legs below my knees. So I have to be careful when I walk and, what kind of shoes I wear, that type of thing. But if that's the only side effect and I'm stable, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Good. Other people's side effects. Paul, you have your hand up.
It's funny. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't familiar with cancer at all, other than other people had cancer. And I was working full time and I thought, okay, so all I need to do is go to the Jewish hospital. I'll schedule my appointments for chemo and radiation in the morning. Actually in the afternoon. So I'll go to work in the morning, I'll go do my treatments in the afternoon, and then I'll come home and sleep, and I'll be able to do this for 30 days. It's no problem. It's a piece of cake. Well, the piece of cake didn't last very long, because the first thing you know, after about 2 weeks, is your body is not responding to anything. I was literally living on the couch where I spent 6 months. It was a struggle to just go to the washroom. So I think when we don't know what we're coming into, it's a pretty hard wall to hit as far as the fatigue goes.
Did any of you hear that fatigue would be an issue? You just didn't understand how deep that fatigue was. MJ?
I had 28 treatments of radiation on the first time, and I actually fell asleep on the table. I was so exhausted, and when I sat up, my car was parked on the street, and I was wondering, am I able to walk to my car, or should I call my husband? That's how exhausted I was.
And I think if we could see all of the faces that we can't see on Zoom, there'd be lots of nodding heads. This kind of fatigue is totally underestimated, and I think is one of the things that is really quite minimized in the severity and its impact. Deb, how did you cope with fatigue as a mum on your own with little kids? So I'm sure that aspect of your story will resonate with others.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to come across as being true, but I've never felt fatigue in all my 28 years. Up until this year. This year, I believe, this past year has probably been the worst year. And it's very difficult for me to understand what's happening to me, because I've never felt this. I think I've I think I've been running on adrenaline for the last 28 years, and I've been so busy and involved and very busy with my girls, with my family, with my friends, busy living my life, volunteering, fundraising. I've been involved with so much that I never had time to be tired. But I think, and I know we'll get to that as well with COVID, COVID slowed me down completely. And what happened was I'm feeling the after effects now from it. And I feel like I think I'm getting 28 years of fatigue now.
Yeah. I think fatigue and neuropathy has been mentioned. Other big things that go along with treatment, you know, body image issues, scarring, mastectomies, stomas, hair loss. Did any of you have an issue that you'd like to speak to our listeners about just some of these body image things? Did you take them in your stride, or were they a struggle for you?
I took them in stride. I knew my hair was going to fall. I did not expect my eyebrows and eyelashes to fall, but my hair grew back. And I was fine. I was fine. That was not an issue. I expected it.
Good.
I took it in stride. I bought myself a wig, and that was it.
And your hair's grown back beautifully. You look lovely.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to comment on any of those kind of severe side effects from treatment or surgery?
Well, I can mention something about the hair loss. I did actually lose my hair 28 years ago, but I was also 30 years old and perfect. I wouldn't want to lose my hair now because I'm older now, and it's a different feeling. When I was young, I walked around bald. I was proud. I didn't have to wear makeup. My skin was perfect. Now I think it would be a different story. I think I'd go get a bunch of different wigs if I had to lose my hair now.
And Paul, Albert, yeah.
Yes, I'll share mine. Mine is quite. I think Deborah, though, her arm, they had to amputate her arm.
No, not amputate, but I'll come back to that story.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure, and I apologize because. But in my case, the cancer was everyththing was very complicated. There was a fistula, and the colorectal cancer that I had went into the urinary system, and I had a very major, big choice with the doctors. Have a meeting of the 5 doctors to talk about my case because they had to remove my whole urinary system except for my 2 kidneys.
Okay.
So that means everything from the back to the front is sewed up, and I have nothing left except for 2 bags. And that's what keeps me alive. Had I not decided to do the operations or the operation, I would no longer be here. So it is with the doctors and deciding what I wanted to do was the best decision because I'm still alive now. And whatever is gone, whatever is scarred is that's what it is, and that's what it is. That does not define me. My mind and my defines me. So.
Excellent. I think that kind of gets me to the question about there's a whole bunch of controversy around the word survivor. Some people like it, some don't. Some think of themselves as just living with cancer. Some call themselves thrivers. Do you identify with the word survivor?
I don't.
Go ahead, MJ.
I live with cancer. That's all. I don't think it was a fight. It was, and I think it probably still is and still might be. But I'm not a survivor. I live with cancer.
Mhm.
That's all it is to me.
Yeah. Any other comments from
I
Paul?
think one of the cliches that I've used with friends and family is having had cancer. I can always say that I've won the round, but I haven't won the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So even though in my case I'm clean 6 years, every little thing, my world is still my full-time job, my family, my friends, but cancer is there.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, I still think or feel if there's something wrong, a little bobo. Just recently, something was on my ear. I went to the Jewish to get the dermo to take a biopsy, and I'm waiting for that. So there's always that. A quote normal person who hasn't had that has something on his ear. You scratch it off, and you go along with your day. But for us, at least for me, it's a constant reminder. There's always a constant reminder.
Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that fear of recurrence? It's a heavy weight for many people. What's been your personal strategy for dealing with that cloud that does hang around?
I think personally, in my case, is just a lot of recently is a lot of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of support from my wife, and to just getting it into your head that it could be something else. Just because we've been struck once, or
Mm-hmm.
others like Deborah have been struck a couple times, but it doesn't mean it's going to be reoccurring. So you just learn to deal with it. It's the doctors, the wonderful doctors at the Jewish refer to it, in my case anyway, as symptom management.
That's interesting.
So, Deb, you want to comment on that?
Well, for myself, if I go back 28 years ago, I keep going back 28 years ago because that's when it all began. I never thought that I would have a recurrence. And when I did in 1998, I didn't think that I'd have another recurrence. I thought that each time that I've had a recurrence, I didn't wait for the recurrence to happen. I didn't think I'd have a recurrence, although I wasn't so much shocked when I did have a recurrence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just, I've never waited for a recurrence. I've never stopped living, waiting for it to happen again. I've always, when it happens, I deal with it. I deal with it the moment that happens. And maybe I have 30 seconds of breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm back on the horse. Like I got it. Like there's no time if I were to stop and let myself just let go, I know that I'm giving up on myself, but I'm giving up on so many people that have so much hope for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially my family, my daughters, my friends. There's just so many people. There's so many, and going back to what I call myself, I guess. Sure, I'm a survivor, but I've always resonated more with the word warrior because I feel that I am a warrior. I feel I'm always fighting, but in a good way. I'm a warrior woman. And so that's the way I see myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I only have 3. I recently had my 3rd clear scan. Cancer came back twice, little small tumors, but needing radiation. So it's not very long. It's only 9 months. It's not very long. So yeah, I live with it, and it's fine. As Deborah said, when it happens again, it happens again. I do. The few days between the scan and the results, I don't sleep so well, but when I get the result, it's fine. I'll be fine. I will deal with it, and I've been fine as much as I could. I've tried to make maintain as much as I could a normal life. Sometimes the normality was very low, but I really tried that. And I've decided when I think I told you that, Susan, I decided when I had my diagnosis, I decided right then and there that I would be fine. And that's been my, I don't know how to call it in English, my motto, my way of dealing with it.
Yeah. I think those self messages are very powerful. What you tell yourself about how fine you're going to be, and for people who there is a recurrence. I've done this before. I can do it again. Is the message some people give themselves, and for others, it's I've done this before, and what did I do in a past life? Why is this happening to me again? And it's very hard for them to get back on that horse because they did it once, they gave it their all, and what has gone wrong that it's come back again. So that mixture of positive and negative messages that sometimes people give each other. Paul, you mentioned meditation as a way of coping for you. Were you a meditator before this, or this was a practice that you found helpful to deal with cancer?
I never was I never believed in meditation. I was never one to try it. And I've been doing it for a couple months now, maybe 2-3 months. And it's a very good stress relief. It's a very good time to just to focus on oneself, regardless of cancer, by the way. Just with the hectic lives, I mean, I still work full time, so it's a very good way, along with exercise and you know, staying in the cancer world, doing some facilitating, you know, expanding and trying to help out. So put it all together and it helps greatly, I find anyway.
Yeah. Albert, what do you find helps you cope with, you know, all of these curveballs that have come your way?
I think the best is, and I've been questioning that a lot, is to dream, think of the future, and to always think ahead instead of going backwards, because you can't go backwards, and live the day. And that keeps me functioning for the next day. That's what keeps me going.
You talked about imaging. I remember when I was getting treatment, both radiation and when I was getting chemo. When I was getting chemo, I'd go to sleep at night, imagining little Pac-Man, for people who are old enough, eating up my cancer. And that's how I fell asleep. And I did that when I was having radiation also. When the machine was turning around me, I was imagining all these, because you hear the noise. So I was imagining little things eating up my tumors around. And that it was visualizing. My doctor said that probably had an impact. The mind has an impact on the body. And she said at one point, all your imaging, it helped. So it worked for me.
I think God bless Pac-Man. I forgot all about Pac-Man, but it is a powerful image of these little people gobbling up, going along all of the pathways and the maze. That
I agree, though, with MJ. I did a lot of, and I still do it when I'm doing any type of treatment. I do visualization, and I think it's so powerful that I don't do it in any other part of my life. But when I'm doing a treatment, I really focus. I don't know if it works, but it helps. It helps get you through the treatment, right?
I think that's sort of key, eh? What gets you through is important. I want to come back to, and it was you, Deb, who mentioned about being a warrior. And again, it's one of these, sort of controversies in survivorship literature and so on. Some people like the term survivor. Some like all these war images of fighting and warriors, and it's the battle and it's a war. And some people find these kind of fighting images very powerful, and others don't. It's obviously a helpful image for you, and it's got you through an awful lot, including 2 black belts throughout all of this. So it's an image that certainly literally and figuratively works for you. But the counterpoint to the fighting image is that no matter what you do, some people lose the fight. And so is the fight a sort of an honest fight? Does anybody have a comment about, you know, this war-like, you know, we're winning the war, we're not winning the war on cancer, these kind of war fighter images? Are they helpful or not helpful in your experience, not in general?
I'd like to just make a comment. It's not really answering your question, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a vision. I don't know how the other panelists see this, but I have a vision of when you call a warrior and you associate it with a war. For those of us of a certain age, I still remember seeing movies where there's a plane and all these fighter pilots used to have either a bomb or an X or something of the number of people they might have shot down. So sometimes when I'm thinking of how many treatments I've had, I see that I visualize that on a plane. So I've had 8 sessions of chemo and I've had 30 radiations. So that's something that it's not necessarily meant that you're proud, but you're a warrior. So it's kind of sort of like stripes on a military. This is what they've done. Well, this is what I've done. And I find that that's a conversation you can have with a fellow cancer survivor, but it's not something that you're going to bring up at supper time. So again, it's a little bit in that warrior sense, but I took it off a little bit. But that's just my thoughts on that one.
That's a helpful one for you. So
it's funny because when I think of warrior, I don't necessarily think of the battle of blood and guts and killing and with the sword. I picture myself a very powerful person leading a pack of women, men, whatever. But I have my battle warriors behind me that are, I don't even envision being fighting. I just envision being a warrior that is going to battle maybe, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and you could have very sort of peaceful warriors that, you know, just they're armed and ready, but it's I just raise it because it's a contentious issue in survivorship literature as to some people find this a very helpful metaphor, and whatever, there's no judgment on any of the terms. What helps you deal with what's on your plate is what helps you deal with on your plate, and for others not. So it's just because I have 4 different people here, I was just seeing if we have a commonality or not. And I see in the chat that some people do find the imagery helpful and others less so, but it's what you bring to your particular journey.
For myself, the word survivor can cover pretty much everything in life. You've got survivors of war, you've got survivors of abuse, you know, physical, mental, verbal, sexual abuse. These are all survivors. They're also thrivers. They're also warriors. You know, I think everybody has a story, and I think whatever makes you feel like you're powerful to get through, you know, the worst thing that could happen to you in your life, if you could just power through it and become whatever it is that gets you through it.
Yeah, I think there's a psychologist I like to read from time to time. She writes a lot of blogs on Hope Cafe. Her name is Donna Sales, and in one of her blogs, she referenced this quote that says, "Through suffering comes wisdom, through surrender comes strength, through resilience comes hope. Let's keep going. Life is messy, sometimes it hurts. No matter what we do, no matter how hard we try or how positive we think, painful, disappointing things happen to us and to those we love. as will precious, joyful things. And sometimes we forget that there are precious, joyful things that happen to us. Resilience, she says, is about being open to life, to be real, to roll with the punches as best we can, get it back up, dust ourselves off, and do it all again, as you've done several times, Deb. Sometimes it takes a while to get back up again, and that's okay. There is no right or wrong way. And if you need a hand, we should take it. Yeah. I think the part of that resonated with me as a clinician is that sometimes it takes a while for people to dust themselves off. And what do we do to provide that support when people find it just hard to get back up again? Life has dealt them a hard blow, as it has to all four of you in different ways at different times. But then sometimes it's easier on some days than others to get out of bed, and other days it's not. So would any of you like to speak to that it's sometimes it does take a while to get back on the horse and to dust yourself off? What has been helpful for you, or what advice would you give to others?
For me, it was, I had decided during my treatment that if I came through that, because I was given 4 years. So if I thought if I get through my treatment and I get a good, a clear scan, I decided I was going to take my family on a trip that I always dreamt I could do. And I said, you know what, let's do it now. Let's enjoy it. So that's how I think having an objective, having that type of, I would say, dream, probably, I think helped me continue going on and get myself up, dust myself off, and pick up my life.
One thing that I noticed this last year, along with the fatigue that I realized that I had, I also realized one very important thing, and that was to let my guard down and accept help. It was very hard for me all these years to accept help. Like you said, Suzanne, to take that hand. It's not easy to show that you're not the big hero, that you are human. I always felt like I was letting people down if I, showed any type of fear, or not that I was fearful, but I think this last year I really showed a lot of my weaknesses, but it's not a weakness. It's just, I think I've come to a point in my life where I think it's okay to say, yeah, you can help me, or you can do this for me, or, and I think, a lot of my friends, I mean, my mom is always there to help me, and I have to tell her all the time, it's okay, I'll do it myself. But a lot of my friends now, they're pushing me to do things for me, and it kind of feels good.
I have to totally agree with Deborah on that comment. When I started off as a facilitator for the men's club at Hope and Cope, I think I thought I was the one to help others with my experience, even though a lot of the members have, more experience in the cancer world than I did. And I thought I was the one that needed to facilitate and guide and everything. And what I've discovered over the last few months of meetings is it's a place where you can share. And just like Deborah says, I mean, there's nothing wrong with showing that you're not at the top. You're amongst and saying, listen, I need some help. And it's amazing on how the people come together and they can give their suggestions or their experience or whatever. But it's a really great feeling to know and to open up and say, hey, I need some help. whether it's a small one or a big problem. And generally 100% of the time, everybody comes to everybody else's rescue, sort of say.
Yeah.
I went for help, but not so much for me. Actually, yes, for me, but for me, the most difficult thing to cope with was other people's reaction to my cancer. That's what I had the most trouble dealing with.
Yeah.
And I went for help and asked, how do I deal with this? I could not cope with. And I had no shame in going to ask for help. I realized I could not do it alone. I needed some psychological support in that area.
Seeking help is a big gift you give yourself. Yes, Albert.
I was just going to say, after I was out of the hospital and finished my major operation, I ended up helping everybody else but myself. And then and people would look at me and say, well, you look okay. You doesn't look like you had cancer. You look great. And like we had this discussion last week, I was a duck on water that was always calm, but those paws or those paddles were paddling really fast. And I chose one side to say enough's enough. I am sick. I'm going through all of this, and I didn't want any pity from anybody, but I have a limit of all the things I could do, and I had to stop helping others and start helping myself. So after that, I think things started to stabilize a bit better for me by doing that. But I was ending up taking care of my dad, who's sick also, and not even myself. So
I think there's two parts. I'm going to come back to the one about, being in relationship with others, taking care of others, and the people who take care of us. But there's also the part that I wanted to address when people think you look so good, you don't look sick, you're an inspiration to everybody. Sometimes I'm suggesting to you and asking you about, can that being an inspiration to others be both a blessing and a burden?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree in a sense that, as well as what my colleague was saying, people look and they say, oh, you look great, and you're working out and everything looks fine. We haven't brought it up yet, but for people to know, following my treatment, I lost 100% of my smell and 100% of my taste. So that never came back. There was always hope with other patients that went through the same thing I did, that it came back or it tasted like metal, but in my case, it never came back. So I live today with no sense of smell and no taste whatsoever. So when people that aren't in the cancer world find out, they don't know what to say. People generally don't know what to say to you. So the first thing they say is, well, you're still alive. Oh yeah, well, isn't that great? Still alive, it's and to for somebody to see all of us, yeah, we all look like we haven't been through hell and back. Well, we've all been through hell and back, and some of us are still living with it and have daily reminders, whether it's a physical scar or a mental scar. So that's my comment. That's just what I was thinking when you were talking. That's just my 2 cents on that subject.
Yeah, your 2 cents is worth a lot. Deb, you look like you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you as well. I've always tried to look my best. I never tried to, sometimes you have to work harder at it because you're not feeling the greatest, but often, more often than not, I've had people say to me, oh my God, you look amazing. You're not sick anymore. You're good. The cancer's all gone. And I have to explain to these people that no, I'm living with cancer. I will live with cancer for the rest of my life. I have metastatic breast cancer. Metastatic means I will be in treatment for the rest of my life. How I deal with it, it's, for me, getting up every day and putting on makeup, fixing my hair, getting dressed. That's important to me. It's important for me to feel good, look good, to feel good. You feel better when you look better. I don't know.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I also forced myself to, during treatment, to, when I could, to get up and put that wig on my head and put some makeup on, try to hide that I didn't have any eyelashes, but and go and you know, fight it. You have to live. You have to continue living. And it's true, when people look up to you, I don't feel it's, I don't think I'm anything special that you should look up to me. That's what was dealt with me in life. That's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with the best way I can. And that's what is carrying me through the days and you know, the weeks, the month. I was told the cancer will come back, came back twice, and doctor told me with clearly, your cancer will come back, so, and we'll deal with it when it does. So I don't even think of it. You can't live with that brick over your head all the time. It cripples you.
Yeah. What do you think of the word? I mean, we've spoken about words like survivor and words like, you know, fighting and so on. I won't even go to victims. I think that although I still see it in the cancer literature sometimes, but what is also out there a lot, and people speak a lot as a way of coping, is 3 G words: grace, gratitude, and grit. And I hear a lot of grit in your stories, that there is a certain grit about moving forward. And you've mentioned some of the support people in your life around gratitude. But and I also hear some grace in that, you know, life is not fair. It is what you make of it. It is how you live it. But what do those words mean to you? Do they help you in any way to think of gratitude in your day, or to think of you as a gritty person rather than anything else?
Gratitude, yes, gratitude for still being here, and for still being able to hug my grandchildren, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Grit, yes, you know, when I'm waiting for these results of rough scans, you know, you want to bite your nails. So yes, I think those 3 words describe very well what cancer is and what, as I say, for me, living with cancer is.
Yeah. Letting some things go, letting go of the things you can't control. Yeah.
So,
and I think even superheroes have a bad day, so it's okay to have some bad days.
I'll answer. One that struck me a long time ago, before I had cancer, was the Dalai Lama. I read one of his books, and he said that he's a person that's smile all the time, and he said he has some bad days, and that really struck me as the last person to have a bad day would be him, because he's day. So if I look at different cultures and different religions, I came upon a person at the Jewish last week. We were just talking, and I was talking about I was seeing the oncologist for my 3rd month visit, and to see if everything's okay, and then to find out if I have another 3 months. And so this lady said that, and we were looking at religion, and she said that in the Jewish religion, they do a prayer every day. And I thought it was very pertinent to people in cancer, and not into Judaism, but in a lot of other cultures also, and religions. And the prayer is Modeh Aneh. It's a prayer that offers thanks to you for our God, for you to mercifully restored my soul within me. Your faithfulness is great. And so other cultures, it's thank the Great Spirit for giving me another day. Thank you for this day today, and I'm looking forward to another tomorrow. And so I've been soul searching a bit all my life, soul searching to find out if there's another answer. But every day I just give thanks that I've got another day, and enjoy it for what it is.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm sure there would be lots of heads nodding if we could see everybody on the wider screen. This is what I so miss about not being in person, just to have this sort of facial feedback. But I know, Deb, I'm giving away big secrets of your life, that you are getting to be to walk your daughter down the aisle very soon.
Yeah.
Something that you dreamed about for a long, long time.
I have, and I never in a million years thought that I would, when I was first diagnosed, my daughters were 7 and 3 years old. And I never imagined me being a mother of the bride or a grandmother. I'd like to be a grandmother too. But yeah, my daughter's getting married in October. And, you know, like back to the gratitude, for sure, there's gratitude every single part of the day. The grace is, or the grit, like MJ said, is really when you're dealing with those scary, you know, in between scans, you know, I call it scanxiety. But the grace, I think, for me is my life. It's not just cancer. It's my life that I'm living. I have an amazing life. I have an amazing family, friends, and I'm very close with my daughters. And now one of them is getting married. And you know, when I'm living that life, it doesn't have cancer in it. So even though I've been living with cancer for 28 years, I have a life aside from cancer, even though it's always going to be there. But I could tune out of the cancer and live a really great life. And that's what I do every day. So that's my grace.
Before I open it up to some questions, and I see there's some questions in the chat, I did want to just ask a general question about COVID, about the pandemic, and the extra stresses that have laid on you or not. The pandemic has been full of isolation and loneliness for many, telehealth, talking to doctors by phone or by Zoom, not always in person. As people living with cancer, how do you view the last 2 years? And Albert, you were diagnosed in the pandemic, so this really sort of heightens your story. But for the others, has the pandemic taught you lessons or added to your stress in ways that we could all learn from?
No, to me, no, because I was very lucky to be able to go. My husband and I moved to our country house, where it's much more quiet. It's much more peaceful, and I think it actually reduced the amount of stress and of anxiety. And I only say that because we come back to Montreal once in a while, and when we're back here, I could feel my level of stress going up. So I think it was actually helpful for me. I was fine working at a distance, and we were very lucky, I think.
How about you, Paul? You did support groups online as a way of coping through the pandemic. How has the pandemic kind of influenced your thinking about survivorship?
You know, I was fortunate enough to attend several Hope and Cope meetings prior to the pandemic. And we really got a feeling for how people felt and human reaction and human feeling within the room, whatever everybody was diagnosed with. And then when the pandemic came, in my case for the men's club, we were reduced to a simple few on the monthly meetings, either because of the technology challenge. And you can really feel that there was a certain level of frustration. It was one step above better than nothing, but it's very hard to deal with how people are feeling over a computer screen.
Yeah.
I also did some volunteer work one-on-one where you're on the phone. That was a little bit better, but it certainly didn't help. The isolation did not help mentally for the people like all of us that need it. That's my take on it. We have just started back with in-person meetings, and already you can feel the vibe in the room and the friendliness and the hugs, and we need that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. For myself, there's two parts to COVID that I find actually took away from me. One was there was a slight fear of getting COVID because of the fact that I'm in constant treatment. And if I did get sick, I would have to stop my treatment. And I was really nervous about that. But it didn't stop me from living. I had a lot of bubbles that I was in. But the other part was it really did slow me down. Because of the fact that I was so involved with so many different groups and so many different organizations and doing a lot of volunteer work, it really stopped my life. And I found that a very big struggle. Also being part of a group called Breast Friends, which is it's actually Suzanne O'Brien that runs the group. She's been running it for 17 years now.
18
years. 18 years. And I've been a part of this group for many, many years. And all these women that are in this group all have metastatic breast cancer. And unfortunately, over the years, we've lost a lot of women through this group. Not because they weren't fighters, but because the treatments stopped working. But they were all warriors. They were amazing, amazing women. And we started doing this group on Zoom as well. And exactly what Paul said, 2 weeks ago, we had the first time we had a retreat, the first metastatic breast cancer retreat for 2 nights, 3 days up in Bromont. And it was the most amazing thing. Hugging each other, connecting with each other. It was the best thing. And I can't wait to get back to Hope and Cope to start these groups again, because COVID took that away from us. So that's my thing on COVID.
Yeah, well, I think we're not entirely done with it yet, but I think we're all, we need to challenge ourselves to find the best way we can to get those hugs from each other, from whoever, because hugs are really important. I think I'm going to end this bit before I start opening up the chat is kind of one thing, what I wish I knew going into this. Maybe for you, MJ, was I wish I was going to be so tired. I wish I knew I was going to be so tired. I don't know. What might you be, what do you think you wish you knew as you started along this cancer path?
I don't know. I wish I knew more perhaps about the little side effects, the little annoyances that cancer brought. I had a lot of sores in my mouth. I couldn't talk. Talking was hurting at some point. I did not expect the exhaustion. I did not expect the lack of appetite. I wish I was rushed right away from diagnosis to my first chemo, it was like just a couple of weeks. And I did not get any information at that point on what to expect. So everything hit me in the face.
Mhm.
So I wish I would have known that. But otherwise, as I said, I was fine. I was fine. I will be fine. And whatever the cancer throws at me, even if I know it in advance, I'll still have to deal with it. So
Mhm.
it's okay.
Mhm.
I wish I
Any
would have.
other? Go, Dave.
I wish I would have known when I was a teenager and in my 20s. I wish I would have known the strength that I was going to have in my 30s, 40s, 50s. I was much more timid. I was shyer. I didn't realize I had so much strength.
Mhm.
So I wish I would have known that back then. How powerful would that have been to be like that as a teenager?
Mhm.
That's it.
I knew I was strong, though. I had when I was much younger, when I was 22, there was a tragedy in my life, and I think that's where I got a lot of my strength from. I knew that I had gotten over that. I could face anything in life. That was fine.
Tragedy will do that to you.
That's where I think I got a lot of my strength to face whatever in my life.
Either of the men, Albert or Paul, do you have anything you wish you knew before you started along this path?
I'm going to say, in my case, personally, I don't know if it was explained. I can't remember that. That's also another issue called brain fog, but I wish I would have been told the difference between it may come back or it never will come back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember that being explained. I'm pretty sure I kept hearing it will come back.
Yeah.
But in my case, it never did. So that's my wish I knew moment.
Yeah, that clarity of that conversation, it's overwhelming. Albert, is there anything you wish you knew?
No, not really. I try to, whatever hits me, I just try to deal with it when it comes, and I take it as a journey versus I wish I knew or could I have done something better. I can't. I'm living today, and I try to go forward with it instead. So I try to look back at all. I just try to and not let it drag me down. I just see what's ahead in the road, and then, okay, well, if I have to go left, I'll go left. If I go right, I'll go right. And I'm trying to go forward, and that's what
I think I'm going to hire you as my personal coach. I think I need a little bit of that in my life. So we might talk after this, Albert. But I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat that are thanking you all, and that you're all inspiring them in different ways with your stories and your messages. There's been a couple of comments about, have any of you tried complementary therapies? Or you've mentioned meditation, which is a wonderful complementary therapy to traditional treatment. What else? Have any of you tried that you found to be extremely helpful? Albert.
Yes, I have a great physiotherapist, and his name is Diogi.
Yeah.
And he takes me out for a walk every day.
Yeah.
Park, and that's one of my alternative medicines. And the other one, garden.
At the garden. You're a gardener.
Yes, at the country.
Excellent.
And so I find those two therapies really soothing and calming, and something to look forward to.
Any of you tried acupuncture?
I was just going to mention
cannabis,
that, Susan.
anything like that?
I've tried acupuncture. Kind of painful on your tongue. And in my case, it didn't work. But I tried it, but it didn't work for me.
I tried that. I had acupuncture at the hospital, actually.
Yeah.
And I think it did help. So I'm
Good.
really grateful to that. I would go back to it if I need it again.
Good. I think there's so much out there, and good resources at Hope and Cope to direct you to reputable therapists out there. So that's always something to come back to Hope and Cope for. And I'm just asking my background people there, are there any sort of questions that I have really missed? I've just tried to sort of keep a general overview. I think you've,
Hi,
Deanne.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Suzanne, we had a question that was direct to me.
Yeah.
How did Deborah from Miami? She said, how did Deborah manage uncertainty while raising her children? What did she tell them about life and death?
Now there's a challenging one.
Yeah, that's a big one. So when I was first diagnosed, they were 7 and 3. And from the beginning, I actually included them in pretty much everything that I was going through. They knew when I was going through chemotherapy. They saw when I lost my hair. I tried to explain everything as well as possible without giving them dirty details. And as they got older, each time that I was re-diagnosed, they were getting older, so they were understanding more.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of a challenge actually when they were a little older, although they kept seeing the resilience in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I look at both my daughters, man, they are tough little cookies. They are tough cookies. But they're good. They're good people. They've got strong hearts. They're very open, and they're not afraid to talk about disease, illness. It's scary for them, though. It's scary. And sometimes, like I told Suzanne, I didn't even really invite them here tonight because sometimes I like to give them a break away from this too, you know? They don't need to know everything. They don't need to be part of everything. They know enough. They know enough, and they're my biggest supporters, as well as my mom and my dad.
Good. Any other questions, Deanne, that we need to?
No, well, a few comments. Maggie says, I dislike intensely the vocabulary that we associate with cancer. There are many other difficult diseases that we do not use this language. Why is cancer so different?
Aha.
Hmm.
Any thoughts? But it is, you don't talk about the war on Alzheimer's, but you talk about the war on cancer. It is there is this kind of fighting kind of imagery that goes with cancer. I don't know, it's been around for a long, long time, and it kind of resurges up and down, and some people find it very helpful, and then it kind of goes into abeyance again. People, I think people are struggling to find what resonates with them, and what resonates with them is what is helpful. So,
you know, I think also being part of the cancer world for so long, 28 years ago, it was a completely different word. In fact, it was a word that people were afraid to use.
yes,
They were afraid to talk about. It was like it was a dirty word. And I felt part of my duty as a warrior, survivor, thriver, whatever you want to call me, was to actually educate people that it's not a dirty word. It's just a disease.
mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people going through it. And the more support that we can give each other, the less of a dirty word it will be.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. What I started doing when I got back on my feet after my treatment is on my email signature. There's a pair of boxing gloves
Mm-hmm.
and a cancer logo at the bottom of my signature. And I've been sending emails out for the last 6 years. I've had one comment, and it wasn't even directly with me. It was when I went to visit the customer. He made a comment about the signature at the bottom with the boxing gloves and the logo. Because people, even though I agree with you, Deborah, that we've come such a long way, it's still in that side of the fence that it's not a word we want to use too often. Oh, they have cancer, or he's got cancer, but I find that it's still not a openly talked about subject.
That's why these survivorship events, I think, are so important. And when Jessica started this, 30 odd years ago, that the ones we've received the most helpful feedback and people want to hear more of is stories like yours, because the cancer landscape changes, but the personal dealings with cancer doesn't. It still frightens many. It frightens the person who gets diagnosed. It frightens the people who love them. You spoke, MJ, of and others have spoken of having to help others. Albert, you were caring for your father. People don't know what to say. So I think, Deb, you're right. It's all of us in this cancer world that keep educating people as to how to speak the language, how to speak to us, how to help each other. It's okay to ask for help. All of the things you've mentioned tonight around vulnerability, seeking help, going with the flow, getting back on the horse. I mean, these are all kinds of images that people do use, and people will find the image that's really powerful for them. And I think the more we hear your stories, this is going to be amazing. And I'm very, very mindful of time. And I know people have a limit to this, but I want to close out this section with a quote you've all heard from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And maybe, I don't think they're going to forget what you said so easily tonight, or they're going to forget the stories that you have experienced. But what I do know from my heart is that you have made people feel included, people feel grateful for spending this hour with you. You've made me feel humbled. You've made me feel empowered. You've made me feel that I want to continue doing this work. I think there are many feelings you're leaving our listeners with tonight, and never doubt the power of making people take a moment to reflect on their life and feel gratitude for it. That's a huge feeling, regardless of what you say or do. If you make people feel that they have a place and a role in life to do what they do well, you've done great tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So from me to you, God bless you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, MJ. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Paul. And I encourage you all to tune in to Hope and Cope and see what's going on next, and to come back and see us in person very, very soon.